The moment I realized I was falling for Marin Rivers began on a sun-washed afternoon that should have felt ordinary but didn't, because she stumbled into my life like someone who had been running from storms for years and finally saw a patch of sky they could trust. I remember watching her collapse into the seat beside me on the steps of Harbor Lane Park, her breath uneven, her hair wind-tossed, her eyes impossibly bright from holding back things she didn't know how to say. Everything about her felt like a story that had been left unfinished. And I didn't know it then, but I was about to step into the most complicated chapter of my own life. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us we're all human, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps us bring more heart-touching stories to life. From the first day I met her, something about Marin tugged at me gently, like a memory I hadn't lived yet. She was 27, a digital illustrator whose hands always carried faint traces of charcoal or ink, even on days she swore she hadn't worked. Her laughter arrived rarely but sincerely, and when it did, it sounded like a song meant for someone who hadn't arrived yet. I was that someone without realizing it. My name is Ray Sunhale, 30 years old, an architect who often hid behind blueprints and deadlines because dealing with buildings was easier than dealing with my own heart. It was a clean, bright day in early spring when our story shifted. Not broke. Not cracked. Just shifted, like two puzzle pieces that had been lying separately but finally found their edge. We were at a friend's casual weekend gathering in a small lakeside town, surrounded by soft daylight, calm water, and distant music from someone's portable speaker. Most of the group danced or talked loudly, but Marin had wandered off alone after 2 drinks, sitting at the end of the wooden dock, shoes off, feet suspended above the clear water. I found her there, knees drawn to her chest, shoulders trembling almost imperceptibly. Her hair, a warm chestnut brown, caught the sun in a way that made it look like the world had given her a halo she didn't know she deserved. I sat beside her, unsure if she wanted company. She didn't look at me immediately. When she finally did, her eyes were glassy with alcohol and emotion, a dangerous mix because it made truths slip out without warning. She whispered something like an apology for being distant earlier, then reached for my arm as if she needed to anchor herself to something steady. I offered her my hand, thinking she just needed balance. Instead, she leaned closer, too close, her breath warm, her lips brushing the air just beside my cheek before angling toward mine. My heart raced. Everything in me wanted to meet her halfway. But I didn't. I couldn't. So I said the only line my conscience allowed: if you were sober, I'd make the first move. She froze, blinked twice, and then unexpectedly smiled. A soft, lopsided, heartbreaking smile. She mumbled something about ruining things, then curled into herself and rested her head on my shoulder. I stayed beside her until she sobered enough to walk safely, guiding her gently, carefully, silently. I never mentioned the almost kiss again. She didn't either, but something changed after that day. Marin became quieter around me, as though she feared she had revealed too much. She stopped sitting beside me automatically when our group met for breakfast on weekends. She stopped sending me the random sketches she used to share, doodles of birds, cafe strangers, or city rooftops. When she laughed, she looked away from me, almost painfully shy. I felt the shift like a cold wind sneaking through a window I didn't know was open. Weeks passed, and we drifted, not because we wanted to but because unspoken moments carry their own gravity. I kept wondering if she remembered what she tried to do that day. I wondered if backing away had hurt her. I wondered if I should have confessed something instead of protecting a boundary she hadn't meant to cross. I wondered too much, acted too little. One clear afternoon, blue sky, gentle breeze, soft sunlight, the universe decided it had waited long enough for us. She appeared at my office building lobby, holding a sketchbook so tightly her knuckles went pale. She wasn't drunk this time. Not even close. She was fully present, painfully aware, visibly anxious. We stepped outside together, the world glowing with day as cars hummed by and people walked with purpose. She led us to the quiet side of the building near the flower beds the maintenance crew kept neatly trimmed. She didn't start with a greeting, she started with honesty. She told me she remembered everything from the lakeside dock, the music, the breeze, my hand steady on her arm, the way the sunlight made the water glitter like broken glass. She remembered trying to kiss me. She remembered me pulling back. And she remembered my words. Her voice wavered as she explained how those words made her feel seen and protected at the same time, but also embarrassed and uncertain. She said she didn't want to be someone who stumbled into moments she didn't fully mean. She didn't want to kiss someone because of alcohol. She wanted clarity. She wanted intention. She wanted respect. My chest tightened. Because I wanted all the same things. I told her I'd pulled away not because I didn't want her, but because I wanted her with a clear mind and steady heart. I told her she deserved a moment that belonged to her, not to a drink, not to guilt, not to temporary courage. Her eyes filled with quiet tears. She tried to blink away, and for a moment, the busy world around us melted into silence. She opened her sketchbook then, revealing something that made my breath leave my lungs entirely. A drawing of the lakeside dock with two figures, her and me, sitting side by side exactly as we had that day. Except in her drawing, our hands were touching, fingers intertwined. She whispered that she had drawn it the morning after because she needed to freeze the memory before fear made it blurry. She said she wasn't sure if she was brave enough to tell me what she felt, so she drew it instead, and that was the moment I realized that kindness doesn't just save the person receiving it. Sometimes it saves the person giving it too. Over the next weeks, the walls between us dissolved. We started meeting for morning walks around Harbor Lane Park, always in daylight, always in open places where truth didn't feel suffocating. She told me about her past relationships that taught her to shrink herself, people who mistook her softness for weakness. I shared my own fears of losing people I cared for, of wanting too much, of stepping into emotions I didn't know how to handle. The more we shared, the more our story began to feel inevitable, yet there was still one unspoken moment lingering between us, the kiss I had promised would happen when she was sober. On a bright, breezy Saturday morning, the promise finally claimed its moment. We were sitting on a hill overlooking the city, sunlight pouring around us like warm silk. She had been sketching a line of clouds shaped like drifting boats while I watched the world glow beneath us. She paused, put her pencil down, and said my name in a voice that made my heart thump like a drum someone had hit too hard. When I turned to her, she didn't move closer. She didn't lean in. She didn't rush, she simply looked at me steady, clear, grounded. No alcohol. No confusion. No trembling uncertainty, just honesty. I remembered my words from the dock. And I realized it was my turn to follow through. I reached for her hand slowly, giving her every second to pull away. She didn't. Her fingers tangled with mine, warm and sure. Then, as the sunlight touched her face and a breeze lifted a strand of hair from her cheek, I leaned in and kissed her. Softly first, then fully, as if daylight itself leaned with me. It felt like answering a question the world had asked a long time ago. It felt like stepping into a promise. From that day forward, our connection deepened with the steadiness of something built to last. We supported each other through creative blocks, work stress, quiet insecurities, and the little storms life always sends. She became the gentleness the world forgot to give me. I became the calm she didn't know she deserved. Together, we learned that love isn't always loud, it's often the quiet decision to stay, to try, to believe, and still, every once in a while, she teases me about that lakeside night. She says she's glad I pulled back, because if I hadn't, we might have built everything on a moment she couldn't trust. I tell her she's wrong, because I would have still chosen her the next morning, and the next, and every morning after. She smiles, tells me I'm dramatic, and kisses me anyway. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps keep these emotional, inspiring stories alive. A special request, please comment below what part of the story felt the most real to you. Your words inspire the next chapter we bring to life, and that is how a moment almost born from confusion became a love built on clarity. That is how a near mistake became a beginning. And that is how a simple promise, if you were sober, I'd make the first move, became the doorway to a love that was never meant to be rushed, only reached.